Hello there, ladies and gents, and welcome to a World Cup-inspired world conquest from Russia. That's right, Russia is now hosting the World Cup this year, and so it only logically makes sense to put them against the entire world in Hearts of Iron 4. So, just what can Russia do in a one versus world scenario? Well, you might actually be surprised, because using all of that stockpiled stellunium that they had lying around in 1939, Putin is able to channel that energy into one big weaponized mass destruction machine. That's right, it's Russia, and if we want, we can even zoom in on the mobilizing now. Anyway, to help my Russian friends invade the world, I decided to draw them a little map here, just to, give them a few directions as to what countries they're invading in Europe. I mean, pretty sure it's mostly accurate. If you see any issues with the map, then feel free to tell me in the comments, but don't worry, if I've put you where you should be, and for some reason you think that your country shouldn't be there, well, it's likely because you're incorrect, yeah. Your country should be placed there. I'm always right. Anyway, on to the war declaration. God, what an exciting world we have here today. I mean, Russia's only just, gone and hosted their own World Cup, and guess what? They're actually doing rather well. Well, I suppose that's to be expected. The host does come with some privileges. Anyway, Russia has decided to declare war on Poland, Germany, France, Italy, all of those Scandinavian nations. They're now invading Hungary. Well, not invading, just declaring. They've also declared war on Yugoslavia, which, is one of those modern-day countries you don't hear much about because it just quite simply doesn't exist. And of course, Oman and Yemen, great friends to the Russian state, but also wonderful, bountiful sources of oil. Although to be fair, Russia does have a large supply of oil, so we're not talking quite like the American world conquest we saw in previous videos, in which, yes, it was basically all just about oil. And of course, declaring war on China and the various mini-nations of China. It's always good to declare war on them because you never know what's going to happen. They do have excess manpower to waste, so you want to jump on them before they can build up an industry. And of course, South America, the continent of gameplay, except there is no gameplay to be had here. Yes, the Americas are kind of a very stale place to play in Hearts of Iron 4, so I mean, let's just declare war on them. It should spice up their gameplay as well as making our day ever so slightly better. And of course, best to last, declaring war on Liberia, because I accidentally forgot it. And there you go, the entire world is at war with Russia. Let's sit back, relax, and see how the Russian AI does. Now, just quickly before we start, do you think the Russian AI will be able to take over the world? Or do you think it is just quite frankly impossible for one country to defeat the entire world? I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'm sure we'll have some very happy Russian nationalists pleading the case for Russia. But let's think realistically here. Can Russia, backed with a large quantity of stellunium, manpower, and basically just Russian spirit, take over the entire world if they really put all of their might to it? Do you think they could do it? Well, let's find out. Now, and we're off, and of course Russia gets a bit of an advantage here because they start off with a bit more organization. They knew that this attack was coming, so they planned for it. They planned for it very well, and they lined up many troops on the Polish border and on the Finnish border, which are two pretty decent fronts to secure. Well, they are kind of a little bit overextended at the moment because they don't start with too many divisions in the field, only about 150 or so, which is good for any nation by comparison. However, when you are fighting all of Asia, Scandinavia and Europe at once, it can put you in a bit of a tricky situation. However, they do a pretty good job, and for the first time ever the Russians are able to take out Afghanistan, which is actually quite an achievement considering even the Brits have failed at that. Anyway, on to the invasion of Poland. It's a pretty easy invasion to be had, except the, of course, backing of Germany does kind of push the Russian forces back in the south and in the north. They even managed to grab a few provinces just east of Danzig, which is pretty damn good. The Eastern Front was never really one that the Germans were good at, or Napoleon for that matter. Anyway, what's happening in the World Cup? Well, to many people's surprise, a group of fans decided to... Now, this is rather normal for football, but what really surprised everyone in the audience was that the Danish officials who were overseeing the match actually immediately capitulated. Yes, it only took them about 6 seconds, and the Danish officials decided that this threat was simply too strong, and so they capitulated instantly. But what about the French officials? Well, it took them about 4 minutes or so, and once they realized the great threat that the pitch invaders had, had, the French officials also started raising the white flag. It was quite a sight to behold, I must say. Anyway, as we were discussing this, France has been invaded by the brand new puppet state of, well, it's not even a puppet state. Germany just decided to invade France whilst it's starting to push back the Russians. It's quite an achievement indeed. Well done to them. With the Germans on the offensive now, it is quite a sight to behold. Of course, the Russians have now secured the Middle East and will begin a push into Egypt, but the Germans are making gains in Europe. Quite slowly though, but is it going to be enough to actually push the Russians back for good? They do almost encircle an army around Danzig and they push the Russians back. But the Russians have merely fallen back to a temporary fallback line. It's not going to be enough to get rid of them. They're there in Europe and they're there to stay, which makes them a real threat to the future, because as they build up a superior industry, it's going to really turn the tables around. Surprisingly, the Brits managed to push across the Suez Canal into almost Saudi Arabia, but it's kind of a slow push. It loses its momentum. Quite a lot of the tanks that do push end up getting destroyed, and so ultimately it's a push that is pushed backwards. India, of course, falls. That's a huge devastating loss to the British Empire. But what's this? German Reich has pushed all the way through about halfway through Poland. Quite an achievement indeed. Sweden is down to, well, about half a country. Finland, well, they were never really going to stick around for long. They have quite a few snipers, but I'm afraid it's not going to cut it for them today. And I'm afraid this is where we encounter our first issue of the evening. Our game decides to just die. Yes, that's right. The game just crashes for no real reason. I'm pretty sure it was the map mod I was using. But hey, don't worry, I've got a second game. And we're back. This time we've not got a 1 hour long time lapse. This time we have a 7 hour time lapse. That's right, this video took me 7 hours to make. And what's happened? Well, instantly Poland loses about half of its nation, Scandinavia is wiped off the map, and Manchuria has all but been lost. Iran's also kind of taken a plunge, and, well, Romania is no more. Yugoslavia is the next one to start to fall. Hungary is actually holding out quite well. Same with Poland. It appears that the German troops are bolstering their defences rather well. So whilst the Russian Empire is able to offer huge amounts of manpower, the effectiveness of the forces can be questioned. But now we start to see a few cracks in the defences, especially to the south. Hungary's now gone, Bulgaria's gone, Greece is still kind of hanging on there, and Turkey will probably be next to go thanks to the collapse around Azerbaijan. But Germany is starting to see a few gaps appearing, especially now that they've had to go to war with France. That's right, they've declared war on France, which is a bit of a tricky situation for them, because they have to either hold in France, attack in France, and there we go, as they attack into France, Russia comes in from the east, takes down Poland, and now they've grabbed Berlin. That's right, it's the fall of Berlin, and it's only 1939. With Germany gone, there's nothing to stop Russia now. They invade right the way through into France and down into Spain, and grab Portugal as well. Spain is then naturally puppeted because, it's up to the Spains to govern the Spains. And Italy falls as well. Italy and Germany and Slovakia are now all puppets, as well as a little state of Austria for some reason. Liberia falls, France falls, and yes, that's right, Africa is now gone. And whilst all this has been happening, I've basically missed it, but Asia has fallen as well. All of Asia, excluding Japan, has now fallen to the Russians and have now all been puppeted. Because, just let them govern themselves in the eyes of the Russians. There's no need to have Putin go over there and do it all manually. So what happens now? Well, this is the waiting game. Russia doesn't start off with much of a fleet, but that doesn't mean they can't build one. They've seized the shipyards of France and Turkey and Saudi Arabia, especially Sweden, Norway and Denmark. All good navally producing nations, as well as Portugal. So what will they be doing? Well, they're taking those shipyards and they are producing the largest fleet the world has ever seen. Of course, they can't sail it out of port, because as soon as they do, the Brits will jump on it. They need to make sure they have the largest amount of ships possible and then sail them straight into the English Channel, and only then will they be able to stage the perfect invasion of the UK. It's Operation Sea Lion all over again, ladies and gentlemen, and there's only one way you can do it, and that has to be damn perfect. Anyway, if you're enjoying the video, feel free to give it a like. Well, it has taken me certainly a few hours to make these kind of videos, so any support would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, back to the game, and Russia is partially stagnant for the moment, and whilst it might look stagnant, weeks and weeks are going by. This is a time-lapse edited in such a way that it is 32 times the original speed, whilst we might feel that it's only been, well, only maybe an hour or so in Russian time, it might have actually been about a month. And so what will the Russian AI do when they're preparing for an invasion, of course? First, they have to take out the UK, and only then can they start to set their eyes elsewhere. And with that, there you go, the German puppet invades the UK, assisted by Spain and of course Russia. The Russian fleet sits in the Channel, whilst the Germans launch a naval invasion. They actually do it. The Germans start and commit Operation Sea Lion. Very impressive. But what will the Russian AI do now? Well, logically they just have to hop into Northern Ireland and grab the rest of Ireland. Easy peasy. And after that, what's next? Well, I'm afraid it's up to South America. But how will the AI be able to handle it? Invading South America has always been quite a chore. It's hardly got any good infrastructure, and it's a notoriously crappy place to invade. So let's see if we can give the AI a hand. And with that, I whip out my Drew Durnall-inspired observer powers and I annex all of Argentina because, I mean, I might be British and, you know, there's certainly something I like to do with Argentina. So Russia naturally invades all of Argentina. Well, they don't invade it, it's more handed on a platter to them. And with that, for some reason, instead of actually taking out Chile, they choose to paradrop Brazil. Yeah, they paradrop Brazil, capitulating it alongside Peru. Hardly the most expected play of the century, but what happens now? Well, in Brazil, the Russian AI faces a bit of a challenge. It's not an easy place to invade. There's lots of jungle, there's lots of crappy infrastructure, and as the last of the paratroopers are wiped out in Peru, it's up to Brazil to hold out against Paraguay. Yeah, that's right, Paraguay is attempting to knock Russia out of South America. So I jump in and take over the AI and I kind of assist in their invasion, mostly just landing a few more troops, improving the supply situation, and manually just directing a few of them because, yes, the Russian forces could use a bit of a helping hand in this situation. So naturally I push back Paraguay a little bit and I decide, you know what, I've kind of done my job here. I feel that enough troops have arrived here for the Russian AI to take over. And so I let them do so. So they take over and immediately proceed to wipe out all of Chile. They march up through Peru, grab Bolivia and Paraguay. I mean, they've kind of split the continent in half. It's a bit of a mess, but you know, whatever is up for them. And for some reason I just read Bolivia is Belgium, but I think I need my eyes testing. God, I see Belgium everywhere now. So Paraguay is pushed solely into Brazil in quite an interesting move. Venezuela is cut straight in half. But this is, of course, only just the beginning. Christ, the German Reich just landed in Canada. Now that wasn't something I was expecting. Germany is such a wonderful puppet. They've honestly been doing Russia's bidding oh so well this game. All it turned out was that you needed one Russian official on the throne of Germany and anything is possible. So with that, Germany lands not only in Canada, but they also land in 2 places in America. Quite an achievement. And whilst this happens, the Russians push up through Mexico. And Jesus Christ, what was that beeline? What? What was that? I've never seen that happen before, actually. Bugger me sideways with a teabag. Russian AI, you are one magnificent thing. What an invasion plan. Just cut a line straight through the United States, all the way up to Canada. What an achievement indeed. And with that, well, the world is no more. America falls, Canada falls. It's up to just a few crappy places in South America to really hold out, and a few of those rebellious US states, and there we go. The US is gone, and this is the new world order we're looking at. After a peace deal, the US is puppeted along with Canada, Mexico, and all of the Central Americas, as well as Colombia and Ecuador. Bolivia is also puppeted along with Uruguay. Chile is also puppeted, but they kind of lose a bit of land. And Turkey is given Constantinople, but nothing else. A bit of an interesting peace deal there, to say the least. Same with Afghanistan, they've kind of lost half of their country. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, then please do give it a like. Also, did I mention how we're only about 1,000 subscribers away from 50,000 subscribers? It's always been a dream of mine to hit this number, and honestly, I was thinking of just ending YouTube when I hit it, but I think that there's There's a future to be had here, and thank you all of you. Also, for some reason, the UK's ended up in the hand of the Russians. Absolutely no idea how that happened. Anyway, I will see you all in the next one. I hope you have an absolutely splendid evening and enjoy watching the World Cup. Pip pip tally ho, the Spiffing Brit is heading elsewhere. Also, if you like this video, then I strongly recommend you watch this one right here. It's my favourite video of all time and it just crossed the 1,000 comment mark. Trust me, it's well worth your watch.